All right, start recording. I'm gonna start recording on the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Hey, and welcome to the Drive Your Line podcast. This is where we talk about everything karting, all aspects, chassis, engines, manufacturers, rules, races, series, and so much more. Be sure to come back and listen. Well, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Drive Your Line podcast. I'm Christy Kendall, your host, coming to you live from, are we technically in Ridgeland? Madison, Mississippi. I have to ask. We live in Brandon, so it's not quite the same, but it is. But thank you for coming. We do have a very distinguished group tonight. We have Kevin Williams. Unfortunately, Mike Tetro was not able to make it this evening. He has had a few family issues and emergencies that he had to address. So we're going to give him a pardon this time, but we're not going to let him off the hook. We will definitely have him on again. Before we get into the podcast with Kevin, I want to go over just a few brief things. And, I know that everybody, all these series are pretty much coming to a close. We have Savannah this weekend at Roebling Road. We have Daytona Kart Week coming up. PRI is coming up in Indianapolis. If you have not been to PRI, you need to look into how you can go and make sure that you can get in the rooms that you need to get into. PRI is definitely a 2-day event for anybody who's never been there. Go on, see who the vendors are, make a list of who you would like to go talk to, and go ahead and see if you can get some time with them one-on-one. A lot of those vendors, they're happy to talk to you. They're happy to take some time. They're happy to hear about what you're either looking for or how they can help you. So PRI is a wonderful show to go to in the off season. I know that all the entries are, I believe, all the pre-registration is open for WKA right now for Kart Week. So if you haven't pre-registered, do so. If you're in the middle South, we are having a race in Biloxi at Finish Line Performance Karting on the 26th. You have to register for that at racebiloxi.com. And you want to look for I think it's a Halloween Spectacular. That's where you're going to register, and you will declare your class, your cart number, your driver, and take your transponder number to the registration gate when you arrive. That way they get all the information accurately directly from you. You have no idea how many times people register, put their number in, and they are either dyslexy typers or they just were a little sloppy and they put in the wrong digits. And that makes it really impossible when you're trying to score. So you have somebody pinging, but there's no real number affiliated with the name. So anyway, again, we'll be in Biloxi at Finish Line Performance Karting. I know Moore Park in Lafayette, Louisiana, still has a couple of races left on their schedule. Again, this is the Middle South region. Lafayette has a great old school program, has some new life that has kind of been brought into it, and they are definitely CPR in that program back into a really well-rounded and well-attended club level racetrack, and I'm happy to see that for Derek Moore, Macon, Rob Venable, everybody out there who's made it happen this past year. They have seen a lot of improvements. Speaking of improvements, here at Buddy Butts Park, Spring Ridge Raceway, home of the Mississippi Karters Association, things are still ongoing. We're still waiting for, we have one more quote we're kind of waiting on, and that one's really important. So once that one comes in, I think that we will have a definitive date that we can get things rolling as far as asphalt. We're still pushing. We're a couple weeks behind. That weather that rolled through here a couple of times put us behind, put a couple of our contractors behind, so we're at their mercy. When you've got tens of thousands of square feet of asphalt to put in versus our little piddly racetrack, it kind of takes precedence. So, don't lose faith. We are pushing forward with the improvements. We will be bringing back the Mississippi Karter Association, and we will also be bringing back Spring Ridge Raceway here at Buddy Butts Park. So now that we've gone through all of that, killed a little bit of time here, I can take some questions. We are live on my Facebook. We're also live on the Drive Your Line podcast. We are live on Drive Your Line, and we are live on YouTube. You can also catch these podcasts on pretty much every streaming what? How many different streaming services are we on?
All of them.
All of 'em. Daniel says all of them. Yeah, Daniel over there, he keeps us right and tight and definitely keeps us out there in front of everybody, does a beautiful job with it. And guys, you are doing a bang up job getting us views and likes and shares and introducing more people into the podcast. I know there's several smaller podcasts that are starting out here soon as it relates to karting. All of this is good for our sport. All of it is growth. All of it is exposure. All of it's marketing. All of it creates a bigger footprint, and we need that. We need that in karting more than you know. So do your share, be polite, be courteous, be a good racer, share our sport with your friends. Um, we need to get more people involved. We're the best kept secret in motorsports. So I'm going to go over and get Kevin and bring him in. Kevin is in sunny Las Vegas. He's got to rub it in that the weather looks phenomenal. Can you hear us, Kev?
Yeah, it's great. Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sorry that Mike wouldn't be able to join us this evening, but like I said, we're not going to let him off the hook. I'm going to make sure that we get to talk to him in the future.
We should.
Kevin, I know that you're kind of looking at the scope from above, you know, the 500 foot above the sphere thing as you get ready to roll into Daytona. I know that's quite the undertaking. Um, just walk me through because a lot of racers don't understand what it's like to put on an event, let alone one of that scope. Go through like some of the moving pieces that you guys deal with day in and day out from here to December.
Yeah, actually, it starts back on January 1st, and it does every year. And the speedway is heavily vested into the event. NASCAR owns a speedway, and I mean, we've been doing it for 50 years. We being the sport has had the luxury of being at Daytona for 50 years, and it's a conglomeration of a lot of people's efforts, but also a lot of people through all the different styles of kart racing. You know, a lot of promoters, they focus on one style of kart racing, and we're one of the few that focuses on every style of kart racing. And probably the only one that has every single style of kart racing. And interestingly enough, it's all three different markets, three different demographics amongst three different races: sprint, road race, and dirt speedway. But at the same time, we all have one common ground, and we want to race go-karts. And for that, we will do everything we can to make sure and provide an awesome Daytona. There's a lot of things that go into the planning of Daytona. There's a lot of things that are kind of cookie cutter, let's repeat it. But when we meet with the Speedway every spring to talk about the new year, we always want to talk about what we can do that's new and exciting for the racer. The Speedway is extremely involved in customer service and making sure the experience that the karters have at Daytona Kartway is first rate. So we try to, it tries to trickle out to us, and we try to do the same thing. A lot of people don't know that, it's not a go-kart track, it's a speedway. And, when we go go-kart racing, a lot of times we'll go to a go-kart track that's owned by one person. It's a major corporation, it's a speedway, and, we have to follow their rules, but at the same time, it sure is cool to drive through that tunnel and come out the other side, and you got one whole mile of speedway in front of you. I get breathtaking every time I go through.
It's pretty cool when you drive through that tunnel and you see go-karts at the end of the mural. And that is just a beautiful way for us to be showcased, where hundreds of thousands of people go through that tunnel every year, that we get eyeballs on our sport. And every year it doesn't get, it doesn't get old. Not only that, if you've got a good running diesel, it's a concert hall.
And the cool thing is that the speedway actually updates that image on the regular.
Yeah.
So it may not be the same image as we saw last year. That's how much they love us coming there. The whole city, and we're good friends with the city. The whole city loves us coming there. And they're like I said, everybody in town is vested on us being there, us being karting, not necessarily WK. But it's we like to think it's karting's official opening day for the new year.
Well, and like I just spoke with Rick and Randy at our last episode, Randy's cart is in the museum, and I remember that day that he wheeled it over there, he was under the impression it was only staying for a few weeks, maybe a couple months, and he'd be getting it back. He did not know that it would be there forever.
Yeah, I had to apologize to him. We did set him up for that. I worked with his family, but he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as the winningest driver at Daytona. Nobody in any sport has won more national events than he has. So
Oh, no,
we
he
were able to arrange for his cart to be on permanent display there. It joins two other carts that are already there, but it was really exciting. It was nice to have representation. And then
well,
when Daytona comes around, that's actually the starting point and ending point for the tram tours. We actually bring collateral for anybody taking those tram tours, so they see they know what they're looking at, and they can read about it and learn more about karting when they're taking the tram tour and they see what's going on there. They say, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's go karts."
is it possible, do you think, for us to be able to get, some sort of literature to the tram tours for the week that we're there or 4 days that we're there? That
Well,
way they can.
like I just mentioned, we actually do that every year. We hand out, we have hero cards that the tram people get when they go on the trams the entire week, and then any leftover they leave them on the counter.
Oh, well, that's good, so they actually have some literature that they're looking at while they're out there and we're on the track and,
Yeah, we've been doing that for
looking
about
through the
4 or 5.
grates and the pits.
Yeah, yeah, we've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now. And
Awesome.
people, actually, that came from go karters' ideas, and they came up with the idea. We just followed through,
Oh,
and
great.
yeah, and we just hand the tram people hand them out. I meet with the people who give the tours beforehand, and it's actually great.
So, obviously, those of us who've been coming to Daytona for multiple years and seen several generations of families come through those gates, some has changed, but there's a lot that's been upgraded and improved. I remember when we were at Municipal Stadium racing, love the walls there, not. Um, but the improvement in having the new flat track, well, new to us, but the flat track there outside of NASCAR 3 has definitely been an upgrade for karting, for dirt racing. How many entries for dirt did you guys have last year?
A little under 3,000 for the course of the 3 days. But that's among that entries is a tough number, because a lot of those drivers will participate in two or three or four. So to say 3,000, there wasn't 3,000 racers. Although I'm really happy that everybody was there. It's we're more concerned with the individuals, and
Right.
that number was closer to 700 or 800.
Still, that's a lot of people that are committed to those classes to make those numbers elevate to the levels they were. How many entries did you have at Sprint?
A little over 300 at Sprint.
That's still
So,
pretty
which,
substantial.
well, the space, it's a great facility. It's fantastic, but we're only limited to that much space, and we always will be. So, space is always an issue. And then our biggest enemy at Daytona is daylight. The sun goes down at 5:42,
Yeah.
and it gets dark by 5:46. And we know
Yep.
that ahead of time.
At
So,
5:55, we're out of the pits. 5:55.
yeah,
5:55.
yeah. So, that's our, if we really had challenges at Daytona, other than just the gobs of people, we ask everybody to pack their patience a little bit. But also, if folks would read the collateral at worldkarting.com ahead of time, all the stuff there, they would enjoy the weekend a lot better. But like I said, our only challenge at Daytona is really the daylight. That's our biggest challenge. Is that blasted sun.
How many entries did you have for road racing last year?
A little under 700.
That's pretty significant. That's a lot
Yeah.
of road racers.
Well, and the weather has a lot to do with it too. It rained on the first day,
Oh, yeah.
and
It was
there
cold
are
too.
there are people who, believe it or not, there are people who have not made their hotel reservations, did not register ahead of time, and on the first day rain, you see a lot less people come through the gate. It was
Yep.
beautiful the other 2 days, but the first day it rained.
Yes, it was.
So yeah, surprisingly, even in the hotels, I mean, we get probably 20 or 25% of the people booked within the week.
Oh, I would a lot of racers, unfortunately, they're gonna wait to see what the weather's doing, they're gonna wait to see what their family's doing, they're gonna wait
Sure,
and I hate it being, a promoter. I hate when you have pre-registration and people wait because as a promoter, you still have to show up.
sure.
You're still committed to paying for the track, you're committed to paying for your insurance, you're committed to your advertising, and you have committed to the racers, and you still have to be there regardless if they show up or not. And
Yeah,
then when
but in a lot of cases, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get away from that. People have lives, and the karting calendar is extremely packed these days, more
it is
so than it has been ever, in all forms, not just sprint racing, not just road
mhm.
racing, not just dirt speedway, all forms of karting. There's a race just about every weekend, and the calendar is just absolutely packed. And we understand if people have to make a last minute decision. I mean, we're a couple days right after, we're the day after Christmas, after all. So
Well,
I
we're the
will.
day after Christmas for over 50 years, it's not like it's a secret.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But there's still, when we're talking about, expenses and all the racing that everybody's doing. I mean, excuse me, there's people racing almost every single weekend. There's an event almost every single weekend somewhere. I think I
We're
counted last year 49 national, or no, yeah, 49 national sprint
events.
races in the
Mhm.
United States.
We participated in some national events, some regional events this year. I know just in the month of October, some of my sprint kids will be on the road for 3 weeks. Last week,
Yeah,
they were at Newcastle. This
yeah,
week, we'll be at Savannah. Next
yeah,
week, we'll be in Biloxi.
yeah.
And, when I talk to them, when I talk to their parents, I'm starting to hear that strain, you know? Um, their drivers are they're getting a little stressed out. They're ready for a break. They're ready to just chill, and it's like, "Well, don't chill too much. We gotta get ready for Daytona." So, hopefully that rest period between our last race on the 26th and hitting the high banks will be enough for them to recharge and get ready for the next season.
One cool thing about Daytona being the last week of the year is those junior drivers you talk about. A lot of them, they're moving up the next year,
Yeah,
being that we're really officially on the new year, even though the calendar says it's the previous year.
yep,
They can actually get a little track time in their new age group at Daytona,
mhm.
where they don't have to go to their first regional or local race and be out there for the first time in that new age group. They get a little experience at Daytona. That's another benefit of the time of year, and of course Florida.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the nice thing about being down there is, like you said, you're already getting if you miss Daytona, I don't care if you're a road racer, sprint racer, dirt racer, you're missing probably 60 days of prep on your competition. So, your competition's already 60 days ahead of you mentally and physically, not to mention they already have their equipment together, and they have the opportunity of finding out what they need to fix between now and the next event, where you're kinda starting out with a deficit if you're not going to Daytona. Um, Last year, you guys tried something new. You tried an AB program at road racing. I don't know if you did this over on the sprint track as well. We ran KA or 100cc air-cooled tag, junior and senior as an A race and a B race, so we ran twice a day. That was amazing,
Oh,
and
good, good.
I know we really enjoyed it. We weren't real sure how that AB program was supposed to work when we registered because there really wasn't an explanation. So let's go over that explanation now. And I want to see more people come into that 100cc air cooled tag program. Now, mind you, this is CIK carts. This isn't laydowns. This isn't sprint enduros. These are CIK carts, the same carts you would race at your local sprint track or at the sprint track there at Daytona. And I know there are some people in Ignite that do both sprint and the big track. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, share with them how does that AB class work?
Uh, I'm probably the worst person to ask this thing, but but from a customer service standpoint, we were more interested in servicing a growing population.
Right.
Um, we've seen in sprint racing, there's less air cooled, less shifters, and there's more air cooled two cycle, air cooled four cycle, and those motors are readily available. They're more economical. They last a little longer. And so, and let's face it, in road racing, there's more sit-up carts than there are laydowns. But even though I'm
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the laydown,
Yep, me
but
too.
it's really because of the changing times. Um,
Well,
And
I
like
think
you
it's the
said,
opportunity to get these people that are sprint racers introduced into road racing
yeah,
without it being intimidating or something new, and then they
yeah,
see the lay down carts and they're like, "Ooh, what's that?" And then they have the opportunity to go talk to the racers that are running lay down, such as Rick and Randy, uh,
yeah.
Colin, I mean, there's a lot of people that would answer questions versus any other time they would never be exposed to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you know, when we were all kids, we'd start in sprint racing, and when we went road racing, we had to get a lay down. And so all of a
Yep.
sudden, if you've got a brother or sister, your parents have four go karts in your garage, and they're thinking, "What in the heck are we doing?" So it's like you said, to take somebody to take the same cart and be able to go back
Mhm.
to back, which a lot of people do in 206 racing anymore. They do both. They're road tax racing and some of the tag stuff too.
My
One
junior did
CAK
it
cart.
last year with a
Yeah,
KA.
yeah,
He took a CIK kart that he sprint raced, and we
yeah,
made the adaptations, which are very minimal,
yeah.
to go ahead and go to Daytona, and he walked up on the grid, and he says, "I'm winning today," and we're like, "Dude, people come to Daytona 20, 30 years and never win it," and he says, "Not today." And he did, he won it, and he's never overly confident like that. It's like, "Wow, where'd this guy come from?" He loved it, so he'll be returning this year. But for those of you who don't understand the AB program, the A program is your WKA national points race. That's your final 1 and 2. The B program's kind of like an extra. So you get to run twice on the first day, twice on the second day. And the A program is your national points, and the B program is your extra. So there's no real points for that other than for the weekend. You're still going to get a prize. You're still going to get a trophy. And I think that our road racers, guys, there's always a backdrop hanging at Daytona. Go get your picture taken with your trophies. Put them out there on social media. Share what it is we do. Road racing is a huge community, but it's one of the worst kept secrets ever. Everybody knows it's there, but they don't get involved in it. So if this helps get the people into road racing, even for once or twice in the year, that's still more than what they did the year before. So introduce them and do what you can to help bring them over. Even if you got to, drag them over there to introduce them. Most people come over and think that road racers are crazy. You don't have to be, but it sure helps. Um, but the AB program, I think, is a wonderful thing. It was very attractive. I know in our pit, nobody really knew. They thought that, they just registered for A and B, but not for both days. So when they found out they could race 4 times at Daytona, it was really a very attractive offer for them. And I know that all of my crew went back into registration and upped their entries and added those 2 other opportunities.
Yeah, and there's also a category that didn't have a lot of other classes. Like for example, in 206, you could run heavy, you could run medium, and
Mhm.
then there's your 4 races in the course of the weekend.
And they're
So
national point
that was
races then.
another reason also. I mean, we've got the track, and one of the benefits of road racing is it's cool because you get to race the tracks you see on TV, right?
Right.
And if we can provide more time and provided the sunlight, then listen, we'll do it all the time. I often ask for extra days and all that kind of stuff, and our cookie cutter program is pretty much set. But
Well, I hope that your sprint program sees an elevation and some entries now that we have other programs using the Daytona Sprint track. This is a wonderful opportunity for them to kind of get a good feel on the track if they've never been there, and it gives them the opportunity to get ahead of the curve on setup. So now people can come into Daytona in December and get ready for USPKS. And I don't know if CK&A's schedule has been released or is going to include that, but last year they did go to Daytona. USPKS is going to Daytona for 25. So if anybody out there is watching and you are a sprint racer competing in those programs, this is a wonderful way for you to go out and experience the track before you get into competition with those other series.
yeah, absolutely. The Speedway wanted to make the facility available while still protecting the sanctity of Daytona Kart Week during that week.
Mhm.
And I don't blame them. We're when you have a facility, it's your goal to fill the facility as much as possible, right? So they made it available for the first time ever last year, kind of as a test, and it worked out well for karting, worked out well for the Speedway, and the others are going to be there. So, but ours is still, of course, that week between Christmas and New Year's, because it's a historical event as Kart Week.
Right, right. And I think again, if somebody were to take the opportunity in December to prepare themselves for these other events, it's advantageous for them to take, full advantage of that. I hope that those numbers increase for you over there, and I hope that that offers a little bit of a boost because, there's a lot of pie to go around, and there's something for everybody now.
Well,
Even with
for safety reasons, we actually capped classes this year.
Mhm.
We had to last year. I mean, the sprint track is a driver track.
Yep.
And it's challenging, and sometimes it's not necessarily easy down a straightaway, a nice corner. You have to think about it. You have to set up your cart. You have to communicate with your team the best way to set up your cart. And because of that, a lot of people are somewhat surprised. So, like you said, practice is really important to get laps at that track because the smarter drivers are the ones who come out on top at that facility.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've gone over and had the opportunity to watch some of the, sprint races during Kart Week, and it the finishes are amazing there. Coming off the
Yeah,
last turn at
yeah,
the
they are.
start finish line, that is where that race is either made or lost, and,
Yeah.
that last lap is incredibly crucial there. It's the momentum, you can't you screw up one corner, you screwed up the whole lap. So, um, I cannot emphasize enough that if you have the opportunity to go to Kart Week, go. If you are a USPKS competitor, go. Go in December and get a handle on it now. Let's talk a little bit about road racing 2025. Um, what is the schedule thus far for 2025?
So far, we have Daytona will be the first race of the year, and
Mhm.
then Southern Cart Club was kind enough to have us back for their event in the spring at Roebling in
'Kay.
Savannah. Then the end of March, last weekend in March, we're going back to Rockingham,
'Kay.
newly paved Rockingham, and which will be using the oval as well as the infield.
Okay.
They've added a couple additions to the infield, so there's more than just one configuration. Um, and our goal is to use the original configuration as we did 30 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
Then we have one more race where we are negotiating with the Speedway, but it will be a spring race, so we're not impeding on all the summer schedules of all the other organizers.
We have quite a gap from, Daytona to Savannah, and then from
Yep.
Savannah, I think the first AKRA race is April? So you got, several months there that there's a lot of void to be filled, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Can you say where that spring race would be, Kevin?
Well, we were shooting for Charlotte. It's not a
Okay.
secret. We put it on our Facebook. And Charlotte is going through some changes because they're building a track across the street.
Yep, behind it.
And that's more for arrive and drive race car programs. But the benefit to that is those programs are now off the main speedway and make more
Mhm.
available dates for us. So when I say the fall, we tried to get it close to the Roval, so that way the track is already set up for the Roval. It makes it easier on them. We haven't got their official answer yet, but that's what we're shooting for. If it
But
happens, great. If it doesn't, and then we'll shoot for it next year.
the
But
other 3 dates are confirmed at this time?
oh yeah, the other 3 dates are confirmed. So Daytona, Roebling, and Rockingham are all confirmed.
Shifting gears a little bit, I know that you've been in the sport quite a few years, as I have. Um, what changes do you think have happened over those years that are positive, and what changes do you feel have been detrimental?
Great question. Great question. It's great that there's a lot of racing, but it's also sometimes detrimental to the sport because then people have to pick and choose. We purposely backed out of a dirt race this week, specifically because there was two other events that were planned that were rescheduled from rain events because there was so much rain down in the southeast this
Mhm.
year. So it's not, it's in karting's best interest not to compact the schedule. So we try and stay off of other people's dates when we schedule road racing. We try and make it 3 weeks between any road racing event. Harder to do now that there's more events available, but that's what we try to do. But one of the biggest benefits is number one, safety. The safety is huge. I mean, I have seen less accidents from WK than I have in the past. All the safety improvements with the homologated bodywork, and then of course the safety gear just gets better and better. So safety is always big. having additional races, like I said before, is kind of a double-edged sword. But it also gives people more opportunities to race closer to home if they don't want to travel so much. So for the sport, that's great because you want the kart shops to do well. You want the tracks to do well. You want the distributors to do well. And then, and the motor builders and everybody who are asset holders of the sport. It's all important. So things I'd love to see more of. Sadly, sometimes is us. We often voice our concerns, rightfully so, and we're welcome to do that. Sometimes that's somewhat damaging to people who don't understand our sport. So some of the comments we see, and I've said this before on my third Thursday with the president on WK's Facebook page, just because we remove your post, that just wasn't moving that discussion forward. It doesn't mean you're blocked or anything, but we want to be able to move the discussion forward towards growth. And sometimes it means less engines, less events, um, less promoters, less areas. Sometimes less is more.
True.
Um, and if everybody is scheduling properly, working on a common set of rule sets, I mean, there's no stopping us. Getting people new into the sport has always been a challenge. My 50 years in the sport, you always hear somebody say, "How do we get new people in?" And everybody has a lot of great ideas. Oftentimes, some of those ideas fall on deaf ears, or they don't pay off big enough for us to see an impact. And don't get me wrong, I see a lot of people doing great things with bringing new people into the sport. On a big scale, it's very, very difficult to scale karting. You take some of these live streams that are fantastic, and they bring in sport to us, and it's great. But it's very, very difficult to calculate whether or not they've brought in anybody new into the sport. They may have, they may not have. Nobody really is required to keep any numbers on that. So, but I mean, listen, any promotion is good promotion, right?
Well, sometimes not. Um,
No,
it
sometimes it's good to shake things up a little bit.
oh,
But as
well,
long
here,
as it's
hold
respectful.
my beer then, hold on.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I remember, when I got involved in karting, obviously, I grew up in WK, so I guess that I, like many others, take great deal of personal offense when things go awry, when things don't go as expected or, not as we were informed. And, again, having been in the promoter shoes here most recently, I share your frustration on several levels. But at the same time, and I'm definitely, I'll say it now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I have been personally guilty of lashing out and saying things without 360 degrees of visibility. And I've apologized. I've apologized
No.
to you personally. Um, but at the same time, I also think that the internet provides sometimes a voice that only gets negativity. And a lot of times that positive praise doesn't ever get showcased. And then when you're looking for sponsors or you have sponsors interested and they go to that social media and they see negative, 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 those are the kind of people that they kind of back out and they go, we don't want to be involved in this.
Yeah, we've experienced that too. We've experienced sponsors from outside the sports backing out, and they literally say, "You guys hate each other." I'm like,
Yeah.
well, they don't. They really listen. We encourage them to speak their mind. We like to hear what they say, and as you said, as promoters, we often sometimes have to pivot. We how many times have we talked to our racers and they say, "Yeah, we'll be there," and then the
They don't
class is
show up.
empty.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll
so
pre-register and they never do. Or, yeah.
well, and that's again, we have to be ready for the it's always good to pre-entry. In a lot of cases there's a discount there, but more importantly, it tells the promoter that they're doing the right thing by having the event.
Yeah.
um, but um, but we also have to understand that people have that. I mean, and there are thousands of different personalities in our sport. You have to understand and respect each thousand of them. That some are going to be just repetitive planners and some aren't.
And there are those that the complaints, the negativity, that's all they do. That's all they know. That's what seems to get them the most
Yeah.
reaction. And, when you stand back and look at it from 30,000 feet, you start realizing that the more positive, and you don't have to, I mean, let's be real, you don't have to BS somebody Be real about it. But you can be positive without lying. That's anybody. That's somebody as a fan, that's somebody as a racer, but you can also be negative and not have all the facts.
You want to make,
And
you really want to understand the difference between people who are insulting and people who are direct.
correct,
I have no problem with people being direct,
correct.
and the officials, they're direct. The answer is no. Why? Well, because I said the answer is no. It's in the book or whatever.
Mhm, mhm.
And you don't want to. I applaud the racers for spending their disposable time and disposable income to go racing. I mean, that's why I'm a volunteer. But I also applaud the promoters who have the guts and the balls to stick their neck out and put on races, because it's a thankless job. And they get a lot of input from a lot of people who have no idea what they're giving input on, and a lot of great input from people who are very skilled in offering their help. I also applaud the people who all over the sport who volunteer to help out at the sport. So all those things make the sport happen.
And every portion of a promoter's being could be risked by one rain date.
Yeah, I can. That's true. That's true.
One rain
Uh,
date and they're done. They'll never be back. It's that's when they start closing the books and saying, "Look, this just wasn't worth it." And we can't control the weather, obviously. It's not something that we can't go unseed clouds, you know what I mean? But one good rain date and that promoter's done. And
well,
that's what
there's a
people
lot of things that can close down a promoter, but rain is one of them.
Mhm.
Insurance is a very big deal in our sport as well. We can't thank the insurance companies who are backing the sport enough. But us as participants, we got to remember that there's insurance companies who they can back out at any time.
Let's
I
talk
mean,
about that
how
for
many
just a second.
how many insurance companies have moved out of California just because they weren't doing well in
That's
California?
right. So let's talk
And
about insurance for just a split second.
yeah,
Um, WK still provides insurance, right?
yeah,
Years ago, and I as a kid growing up, you had to become a WKA member. As a WKA member, those tracks that you became a member at were WKA tracks. They were insured by WKA. WKA also sold memberships at these tracks, and they got a couple bucks here and there for doing that, right? So insurance companies have come and gone. We miss Michael Davis, um, but at the same time, our insurance standards and what they're willing to accept has changed greatly. What
yeah.
challenges does WKA face when providing insurance either for themselves or for other venues, and how do you guys go about overcoming those?
Yeah, first of all, it's important for promoters to have everybody sign the waivers when they come in, and it's important for everybody to sign the waiver when they come in. And that's really to protect the sport that we have that many people, X number of people at an event. And if we get a sign-in sheet that only has 30 names, and we know there was 100 racers there,
Yep,
then we know there's an issue. But more important, we can handle that with the track or the club. More importantly, if the insurance companies see that, they're going to say, "What are these guys trying to pull?"
right.
So your normal common sense of all of us handling insurance with our cars out on the road or whatever it is, the same applies. Don't do anything silly, those kind of things. Uh, you know, gasoline, racing. You wouldn't do anything to hurt yourself while you're racing on the track. It's the same thing when you're walking through the paddock. But
Well, I think
it's
a lot of people don't understand that signature is basically a document saying, "You understand the rule book of this organization, and that's how this insurance policy is
yeah,
created."
yeah,
And what
and
they
it,
don't understand is it's everybody. It's not the guy wearing the helmet. It's the
right,
5-year-old walking through the pits. It's,
right.
the kids playing, it's parents, it's grandparents, it's everybody that is in that pit area
That's right.
has to be
Well,
covered, and they're only
and
covered by signature.
and the officials and the corner workers, everybody at the facility. The event is insured, the facility
Absolutely.
is insured, and everybody else the promoter wants to include in that. We sanction a certain number of tracks around the country, but this is what an association does because we pass our rule book to those folks, and we pass on any updates to the rules. If they have any issues with appeals and whatnot, they try to handle them at the track, but as a sanctioned track, our board could handle their appeal. So that's what an association does. We're not just promoters putting on races. We've even had letters from attorneys saying you're included in a lawsuit for a track and a race that we had nothing to do with. We're just included because we have an office, which we're one of the only ones that actually has an office. And you got a rule book, an office, you've been around for a while. Surely you got money. And then it's up to us to try and prove that all of our organizations that they named were not involved.
Right.
So, and that costs money. We have to spend that. We're happy to do it because we're an association, and that's what an association does. It helps support the sport and keep the wheels on the bus for the sport. We're not just promoters who say, "Hey, I made a couple of bucks this race. I'm going to put on another. I'd like to make more. I'm going to add a fifth race out of my schedule." That's not the way to do it. That does not help the entire big picture. You got to think about big picture with insurance. You got to think about big picture with entries, with the sport, with safety, with the equipment, with the motors, with the chassis, everything. You got to think of the end game, and the end game is everybody have as much fun as they can, safely, and the sport grows.
Well put. So let's go over some WKA history.
Oh God, yeah, test me.
So I grew up in Akron, Ohio, just down the street from where George
Yeah,
Cooper's trucking company was on the corner of
yeah,
224 and 91.
yeah.
And, grew up watching Randy race. And there's actually a picture at my mom's house. I'll have to find it someday. I think I was about 10 years old, maybe. And I'm sitting on Randy Kugler's or George Kugler's knee, and he's telling me at Batavia about taking a particular turning correctly. And, he's like, "Christy, it's not that hard. You're trying to overthink it." And this is a, like, in-depth conversation. The expression on both of our faces is pretty intense. And I remember George Domanic said he looked at that picture one day and he says, "I'm trying to figure out who's trying to convince who of what was right and what was wrong." But I always admired talks with George. He was quite the character. He's very passionate about the sport. But if I have my information correctly, the WK was originally formed in 1971 and became official 1972 at G&J Cartway in Camden, Ohio, correct?
That's correct.
The offices were North Canton on what we referred to in, our area as, Route 91 or Cleveland Avenue, and there was a little A-frame, German-style building that it was housed in. Went by that facility for probably the better half of 20 years, and, then it moved to Charlotte, North Carolina in a deal between Mr. Kugler and Humpy Wheeler, correct?
Yeah, there was a NASCAR incentive there as well,
Mhm.
because karting was an organization, and again it was the Association for Karting, and NASCAR wanted to know where a ladder would exist and include karting. So there was that element of NASCAR into a ladder system that did not pan out.
So the offices are still located in the Charlotte Motor Speedway area, and you guys recently moved into another facility, correct?
The building we were in was over 30 years, and I mean, we had an opportunity to increase our efficiencies, save a couple of bucks by moving to a new construction, which was just, I don't know, 2 miles on the other side of the speedway.
Right.
So we're still within a stone's throw. If anybody knows the area, we're right down the street from that hotel circle there by the speedway.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we were able to capitalize some efficiencies both financially and operationally by moving into a new facility.
Very nice, very nice. And you're still in Las Vegas, and is Mike now in North Carolina, or is he still in Pennsylvania?
So I would love to go to every single national WK race. It's not financially responsible for me to do that because it's at least $1,000 with flight, hotel, and car.
Mhm.
So I only go to a few. Mike is in Pennsylvania. He can get a flight for $80. So it's more financially responsible for us for him to go down. He's the chairman. He's perfected a lot of the operational procedures in the office on a day to day. We have a very smart person who gets our mail when we're not there, and sends us everything that we may need immediately. Otherwise, Mike's usually down there every other week or so.
So, and we all know anybody who's been in the sport for, the last 4 or 5 years, we recently lost Marie Borsick, who is a huge part of the WKA team. Very instrumental with operational procedures, pretty much everything in the office, was the office manager for a very, very long time. And I know that that left a very significant void in the organization as far as manpower. Is there anything that you feel that WK needs help with or could potentially use, some experienced hands when it comes to operations or race day procedures that we can provide from the outside?
Training, to people that are trained in doing all those things, especially at the events. And when you think about, and we're really sad that Marie's gone. And just like us putting on our pants and our shoes every day, we don't think about it. There was 1,000 things she did and didn't even think about it, and things got done. Well, we all had to pick up the ball and figure out what those things were. And a lot of times that usually was a result of somebody calling and say, "Hey, Kevin, you forgot about me." Oh, you're right. I did. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. You know,
yeah.
and so little by little, we were able to pick that up and again, we're a lot more efficient than, nothing against Marie. We're a lot more efficient with a few less people with installing some electronics and, software, things like that.
So,
But
rolling into
really what
Daytona,
the
do you
sport
have
needs
anything that needs to be addressed as far as manpower?
is the sport needs qualified officials that, are trusted, and they don't really have any baggage, but
Yeah,
that's probably the worst thing to say. But and we're reestablishing our tech program this year to help with clubs and tracks and officiating. And we're training some new people to be race officials, and our scoring personnel is fantastic, but we could always use some more. And that helps their home club. It helps their home track. If we can help train them, then we're all the better for the sport wins, not just a couple of WK races. But that's really where we need the help most of all. The office stuff we're pretty efficient at, but everybody has to understand a lot of things we went into electronic mode instead of paper.
right.
And not only is that more efficient operationally and more financially responsible, but it also gives a more accurate return when the customer's trying to do something. I mean, nobody complains at Amazon that their order doesn't go through in 5 seconds. It always does. So, it's one of those things we ask the karting public to understand, that a lot of things are electronic these days. We were the last ones to not print a rule book. Over NASCAR, IndyCar, all the organizations, we were the last ones to stop printing a rule book. And that's really because of cost. The rule book got into the tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm not going to do that with the membership's money.
Okay, next topic, trophies.
Yeah.
I know that people complain about trophies all the time. I know the organization says that they have a lot of trophies that go unclaimed. Um, I don't think racers understand how truly expensive those are. Whether it's
Uh,
eagles, it's cups, it's bowls, it's vases, it's a piece of
yep.
plastic, it's a plaque, it's every one of those is expensive.
Yeah. Thousands of dollars every race weekend. Thousands of dollars. And if you're not going to pick them up, I mean, we'd love to know. We could take a pretty good guess at how many second and thirds aren't going to pick up their trophies. We've been able to refine that a little bit. So we're not actually buying trophies for everything.
Mm,
And in some cases, we'll have the plates to put on them as we give them out for that
right.
very reason. The trophies are hugely expensive. Designing the right thing is always a crapshoot. I'd love anybody to say, "Hey, how about this kind of trophy?" And then of course I could tell them it's $100 and $200.
Mhm.
And but I'd love to get some designs if anybody wants to throw in designs of awards.
What do the 2024 awards ceremonies look like moving forward for
Yep,
all the
that will be for road race. It will be at we'll do a celebration at Rockingham. I mean, we're going back to Rockingham after decades, so why not celebrate being at Rockingham? But the road race champions of 2024 will be celebrated. The national champions will still get an eagle. It's kind of our brand. So, and then second and third will get something. We've got some very good partners who bring in gifts, Vega Tires and TS Racing being one of them.
Mm.
And so that's usually what we're doing. I assume you're asking about road race.
All of them, whether it's road race,
Oh,
what you had for sprint racing, dirt racing.
yeah. So dirt race, we didn't do one because it was because those are usually at nighttime, and there's on a weekend, and there's usually a go kart race.
Gotcha.
That's the
Gotcha.
only reason. It's the only reason. So we were able to award people their national championships at one of our races, kind of like a lot of the other promoters do. It didn't seem to bother anybody, and they had one extra night of going to a racetrack. So, that's kind of why we did it. For sprint racing, we're still putting together our schedule for next year. Again, it's a very crowded place. Sprint racing schedule is
Oh, yeah.
extremely crowded. It needs to be cut down by 25%, in my opinion. But it's a
I know
very
that
crowded place, and it's very difficult to get everybody together. When we used to do them at Daytona, there were some people who loved it. More people said, I'm doing so much moving in, wrenching on the cart, I just can't go. So we stopped doing them at Daytona. But
so membership. So the questions I'm getting to now, Kevin, just so you know, are questions that people have sent me, knowing that I would be talking to you and Mike.
sure.
When it comes to membership, what exactly does a member get?
So first of all, our code of regulations that founded the company is based on membership. I work for the members, and I report to them. And which is why I encourage people to get in touch with me, and I make myself available on Facebook once a month. So the foundation of the organization, the filing, the code of regulations is based on membership. Membership racers, membership partners, membership tracks. A track that we sanction is actually a member track. Sponsor is a member sponsor. So that's the very first thing. It's the foundation of the entire organization. So they get the organization, first of all, is what they get. They also get to vote on stuff when it comes to up in their district and like who represents their district, those kind of things. You don't really get that in any other organization at all. So because of the organization was founded over 50 years ago on membership, that's the first thing. Of course, we spend a lot of time putting together a rule book that's used across the country at several tracks. And we're also members of the SFI Foundation. There's only one other sprint program that is, but the benefit to that is we get the insight and intel on any new products, any products that have been crash tested for safety, but also any fraudulent products that we can weed out of the system. And we often get that and contact the retailers and say, hey, this is fraudulent. Here's the detail on it. So it also helps us hire attorneys to fight off lawsuits for karting, which we get on a semi-regular basis. And frankly, and we don't brag about that. We don't tell anybody about that. But that's a fact of life. Is go-kart race. Let's sue somebody. Oh, look, these guys have been around for a while, and we try to protect our karting neighbors, karting asset
I
holders.
don't think racers truly understand how often lawsuits happen and what minuscule reason people will come up with to sue. The level of liability legally is just outrageous.
Well, we're also processing the insurance for the tracks and the clubs and those kind of things, and handling a lot of their questions and a lot of their challenges when they have an insurance claim or something like that. Again, these are things that association does, and why there's a membership is we are there to contribute to the entire sport. Yeah, we promote some races, but there aren't a lot of organizations who go in depth into the sport as much as we do. I mean, we even train officials at the indoor tracks. So
So when a member becomes a member, when a racer becomes a member, what do they vote on and when?
what do they vote on?
Yeah, what do they vote on and when?
Oh, well, so the country is broken up regionally, and there's 8 different regions. Each one has a trustee. That trustee has a support committee on his team, his or her team. The trustee has to live in that area, and their term is every 2 years. So they're staggered, so only two of them go out at a time. And so then there's executive committee members like myself and chairman, secretary, a couple others that's escaping me, but they have 3-year terms, and they are voted in by the trustees and reaffirmed by the trustee if they rerun. So anybody can nominate themselves in their district for, or if they have somebody to nominate, to be a trustee or a representative of the trustee. And then the district will vote on that. We send out cards, and they are audited and counted by an accounting firm. And then we announce the trustee.
We have some trustee votes, some elections going on this year. When will those
Yeah.
take place?
I think yours. Well, we'll get them started next month, but by the time it's done, it'll be January or February, because you have to allow for time to submit for
Right.
people to submit nominations, which any member can submit a nomination. And then, of course, we have to tabulate those, which the accounting firm does. And then we send out the votes, and everybody's got to have time to vote. And then we, check the guy out or the girl and invite them in. So, and then they go through the hazing process. No, I'm kidding. They don't do that. Yeah, no, but there is an orientation for all of them.
Makes
So,
sense.
but generally we start gathering up the preparing for it in October, and then again it goes out. Now there's people who said, "Gosh, I don't remember ever seeing one." Well, we never got a nomination in that district, and that has happened quite a lot in the last 6, 7, 8 years. I don't remember seeing a vote for anybody. Well, we didn't get any nominations, not anyway.
Right.
So the board has to either ask that person to re-up another 2 years, or the board has to try and find somebody. And they start talking to people in the district, and usually a name comes up, and they're willing to help us out, which I can't thank them enough. They're great. It's great to have volunteers to bounce stuff off of.
So we have a board of directors. I know some of them have been with the organization for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And then we have a chairman. You're the president. Robbie Harper's vice president. Who's our secretary treasurer?
Scott Sanders.
And are those positions appointed by the board of directors, or is that a voted on position?
Yeah, the board asked them to do it, and they have to say yes. But yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if that was
Yeah.
appointed or how that was handled.
Generally, I will do a lot of the legwork and say, hey, we really need your expertise in this area. Can you help? And then I'll submit those names and that structure to the board. However, the board is the one who puts the chairman in. They did, and all our past chairmans, the board is the one who puts the chairman in, and that person is responsible for connecting members, president, and executive committee members to the board, and vice versa. So
Gotcha.
that's really the chairman is really the workhorse and the negotiator between all these positions, all these members.
How many members are currently in WKA?
Um, it's a hard question to ask me today because we just opened them for the new year.
Sorry.
And we do that right before Daytona. Everybody who races at Daytona is required to be a member of WK, and that's mainly because when they become a member, they agree to the rule book, they agree to the terms of their membership, they agree to the code of conduct, those kind of things. Even if somebody just walks up, we still have to make them a member. It's part of our deal. So same in NASCAR, same in IndyCar, same with all those guys. They all
Do
have
you
to be
happen
members.
do you happen to recall how many members you had in 2024?
Yeah, just over 3,500.
Okay. I'm not I'm gonna ask, you may not have an answer. How do those break down between sprint road racing and dirt?
Um,
Because there's probably quite a
so
few that are crossovers.
okay, so when I get called by some media, somebody in New York City or something, they say, "Hey, we want to do a story on karting." How many go-karters in the United States? All of our organizations in the United States, we're not required to report any of those numbers. So all I could do is guess. There are, and if I was to guess 80,000 go-karters in the United States, I would say only 15 to 20% of them are actual racers. The rest of them are recreational. Case in point, a lot of the racers who used to be with us who are now in race cars, they still have a go-kart. They still drive it. They don't race it, but they drive it to stay fit. Jimmy Johnson being one of them. AJ
Mhm.
Allmendinger. They still have go-karts. But to answer your question on the breakdown, um, there's more dirt racers than anything, and then sprint is third, and road race is second. Geographically, because I said earlier that each one of those categories or styles of racing are completely different demographics. Um, Geographically, it's all over the board. Sprint races are spread all over the country. Road racers are mostly in the southeast. I don't want to say southeast, but east. And of course, dirt racers are mainly in the southeast.
Quick question. Man Cup, Gold Cup.
Yeah.
So last year, I know there were some challenges there with scheduling, so on and so forth. What are the plans for both of those particular, disciplines? And we'll call that the last question, and then we'll do our final. So
Okay.
there you
Um, I don't care. We could go for a while if you want to. I don't. You know.
Daniel's like, "Oh, no, 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 it's dinner time."
Okay. I could tell you that we have for the last 4 years, 3 years, we've been very sensitive to the national sprint schedule. And the reason that is because more and more kept popping up both in 2-cycle and 4-cycle. Our Manufacturers Cup program is mainly a 2-cycle program. Our Gold Cup program is mainly a 4-cycle program. So it doesn't make any sense for us to have 6 races in both when there are new promoters who weren't here 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, who are having 5, 6, 7 races or more. Um, to make racers choose just to have a race, we're not just going to have a race to have a race. Again, we're an association who we also promote races. We want the sport to be healthy, and it doesn't make any sense to have races on top of each other. So what we like to work on is some Manufacturers Cup in the Midwest and Gold Cup in the South. That's what we like to work on, and that's the schedule that we're working on for next year.
Roger. Does WKA, are they considering any new engine packages for Man Cup or Gold Cup?
Well, we first are very attuned to homologation of engines,
Mm.
and if there's some new equipment that's being homologated for 2025 that won't be legal in Daytona. So if you look at your list of homologated equipment for 2025, it won't be allowed at Daytona because it's not the new year. So, and we have a rule for that actually. And the reason is because a lot of times those new items are available to a select few in November and December, but on a mass scale after January 1st when they're actually legal all around the world. So it wasn't fair to make those legal if just because somebody who has a friend
Was
or has
lucky
lots of
enough.
money was
Yeah.
able to get it. The only thing that we have added a class for road racing. The supercart class is becoming more popular, so we've added a supercart 125 class, and that will also allow 250 4-stroke and 125 2-cycle. So that's a new class in road race. And then last year we added as you saw, we added the lay down 100cc. So um, that's the only class riding road race. And then we did something very unique this year in sprint. We're adding electric carts, and there's really 3 manufacturers who do electric carts. They're all very good, but these guys were the only ones. The ones we selected was Blue Shock, who are the only ones who use a homologated chassis. So it's a chassis that anybody can get all around the world. It's not just for the electric cart. And the reason we did the electric cart was not to displace anybody in any of their racing packages that they like to race now. If any of our current racers want to give it a go, by all means, give it a go. Their contact information is on our page. They're the manufacturer of the product. They'll be bringing some equipment to the tracks. You just contact them and talk to them about it. But our goal was, as I mentioned before earlier in this podcast, it's always been a difficult answer when somebody says, "How do we get new bodies to the track?" You see NASCAR going into electric. They have electric trucks now. They've made an electric sedan car, and IMSA has hybrid cars is half electric. IndyCar is now hybrid cars, which are electric. We didn't really do it to displace anybody in karting. We did it because there's a certain amount of racers who are in esports and then do very well in the indoor karts or the rental karts outdoor. And they participate in their leagues, and some of them are national champions in those leagues. They're all fantastic drivers, but they didn't have anywhere else to go after that. So this is a new market that nobody's ever seen, and there are new people coming to the track that we've never seen before. And that's why we did it, to try and bring in new bodies. We're very bullish on it, and the manufacturer is committed for multiple years to continue to provide product and service. And the factory reps will be at Daytona. We're having a test day at the end of the month at Whiteland. And then we're also having another familiarization day the week before Thanksgiving um, at Jacksonville. So that way they're more comfortable with the way WK does things, prepare for Daytona, the drivers and the equipment, get the gearing down, the weights down, all those things. That's why we're having those exhibition races. And frankly, they've got quite a few interested parties who are going to go racing. So to us, that's 100 new pit passes and 30 new entries. And, that helps the sport. It helps the organization. And that's why we're doing it.
So with the electric kart edition, will those be a class added on to either a Man Cup or a Gold Cup event?
Um, we they're going to have a series next year that starts at Daytona. It will probably be a combination of both, and the reason is the same reason we have for regional races and regular karting, is some people just simply don't want to travel 3 days to go to a race. They'd rather go to a race that they only travel 6 hours, and that's why we would take the show to them.
Gotcha. Man Cup. Last year, all of your races were at Whiteland Park. Will
Yeah.
that become a little more diverse with other facilities included into the schedule?
Well, Whiteland will certainly be a part of it, and we're looking at one other venue if we do it. So it could be a shorter 3 race series. Could be a 2 race series. And again, the reason is the packed schedule.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Tillotson. Let's talk about Tillotson real quick.
Yeah.
To close out our hour here, or a little bit more than an hour. Obviously, we've done our research and development and have brought the Tillotson card in down here in the Mid-South. It's 225cc engine or 212, or I think they have a 196 as well. Anyway, what's the opportunity there for WKA to bring any of those engine packages into the Man Cup fold? Obviously, people that are 206 purists will, I'm sure, have a lot to say about that. They don't want to see another package in their race programs. But as a
Yeah.
2-cycle person, I remember 100cc having 5, 6, 7 engines that were available to run in one class. Do you ever think that that would be a consideration for not only just WKA, any other organization that would consider another 4-cycle program or a 4-cycle engine to enter into a sanctioning body or a series?
Sure. We actually did do the Tilson package at Salt Lake City, Utah in 2021. And I think there was probably 30 of them, and it was pretty decent. But I'll answer that question the same I do to anyone who has a new package, and that is, number one, is it distributed around the country, or just by one person who doesn't want to leave their area? Is
No,
it?
they're distributed all over the country. Actually,
Yeah,
all
I
over
know.
the world.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned your question. Oh, I get that, but there's some that aren't. And is it accessible? Can anybody get it? We have a rule that any new package, any new equipment, needs to be in the marketplace 60 days before we allow it. And that includes new renditions of something else that was already there. So if it's readily accessible, if it's distributed well, and it's accepted by the karting community, then we consider anything. And Tilson is certainly one of them. We allow it on the road race track right now. So it's, nothing's out of the realm.
I think that we had probably 10 or 12 of those entries on the road race side. We have a Tillotson T4 package, which includes the card and the engine in our shop.
Yeah.
Need to give it a little TLC and resurrector here for next year. But I know that we've had several racers in our region also purchase the package. Cameron Reed went to Spain and represented the United States over there.
We did.
I know Noah Rosser went. There's several drivers who've gone over to represent the United
Yeah.
States, and
Yeah.
to the best of my knowledge, it is the only four-cycle program that offers a world championship. And, maybe that is something that WK could get on board with to be able to provide tickets to those events through Gold Cup or Man Cup as, another level of exposure for people.
Tillotson has been doing it for, I don't know, 9 years now. The European,
Mhm.
the Grand Championship. They're not allowed to call it a World Championship, but
Nations Cup.
yeah, there you go, Nations Cup. Um, both four cycle programs are contrary to what people believe. Both four cycle programs are growing very well in other parts of the world.
They are.
The Briggs 206 is doing well over there as well,
Mhm.
and some of the chassis manufacturers are making four cycle specific chassis. So all of that again, I mean, I got to applaud that both those programs. They bring people out of retirement. They bring new people in the sport.
Correct.
And I mean, listen, and they're a heck of a lot of fun, and they're longer lasting equipment. So longer lasting tires, longer lasting motor, longer lasting everything. So they have a lot of benefits. They certainly do. But like I said, it's nothing's out of the realm of us adding.
Kevin, I appreciate your time. We're at 1 hour, 8 almost 9 minutes. I didn't think that we'd actually go that long. Tell Mike he mixed a really good time. I appreciate you
Yep.
sitting there in the Las Vegas heat. I know that you're sweating your butt off. Thank you very much for taking the time. Is there anything that you would like to share with those that watch this podcast that they need to know?
Um, Listen, if you have questions, WK, I'm Kevin at worldkarting.com. My phone number on worldkarting.com is the only number I got. In fact, I'm using the phone now, and I've had to swipe a couple away during this podcast. But if you have questions, reach out to trustee. Don't just believe everything you see and read on the internet. Wait till we post something. We'll post something on Facebook or the website or both. And when we post something, then you know it's legit. Until then, I can't tell you how many people call and say, this is what I heard. I said, well, okay. Either tell me who that person is or go back and tell them I said they're lying. So, I mean, we just don't have time for that. I mean, we're here to contribute to the sport.
I know that you and I have discussed it that, people will say things, but they never say them to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to hear more.
So you heard that, racers. If you have a
Yeah.
question, a comment, a concern, a complaint, a compliment,
There's your
get a hold of Kevin.
invitation.
Get a hold of Kevin. I pick up the phone, I call him pretty much 9 times out of 10, he does answer the phone. I haven't had a problem contacting him. He returns phone calls, he returns text messages. So anybody who says, "Well, I've got this and this," and well, did you happen to bring it to their attention? I can probably name like 20 names. "Oh, I talked to him." Well, I asked, "Did you talk to so and so?" "No, ma'am, haven't heard from." So
Yeah.
somebody,
I don't keep a list, but all comments and questions are welcome.
there you go. I don't know how much more welcoming that can be. Kevin, again, I thank you for your time. I appreciate your insight, and I will look forward to seeing you in Daytona.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you. And thanks for spreading the karting message across the interweb.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you once again. Have a great night. Guys, thank you very much for hanging on there. I'm gonna start naming him, Lake Speed 2.0. We probably could have gone on for another half hour or so. And there's so much more that I would like to cover, and I would like to get Mike Tetro on and be able to put some questions to him as well. And, when you do these things, there's a lot of people who complain about all organizations, not just one or the other. Everybody has got something for someone. Um, this is a good way to sit there and ask questions. I had 45 different questions from racers they wanted asked. I tried to condense them down to at least key 12, 15. I think we did a pretty good job at addressing most of those. If we didn't address them, please send them to Kevin, and I'm sure he will be happy to respond. In the meantime, we do have some of our sponsors. Our sponsor list is growing. This is the Drive Your Line podcast, and this is not at all going to happen if it weren't for our sponsors. Doorstep Peppers has been with us the past few podcasts. We're happy to have them on board. I've been using the products very faithfully. Their spices are incredible. What does spices and kart racing have? Well, I don't know about you, but our clan cooks at every single event, and these are absolutely amazing. They come in great packaged jars and little shaker bottles. These are homegrown goods. This is a small family owned, veteran owned business. Doorstep Peppers .com. Go online, go look at them. I mean, I have got some that are just my favorites. I use them almost every day. Uh, Mach 5 fiberglass, that is our friend Mark. Mark Purdue is now getting into fiberglass for everything from bodies, fairings, tail sections, and seats for road racing. He will be dabbling a little bit in sprint racing, especially the vintage stuff. He'll be doing that here pretty soon. If you want to get in touch with Mach 5 fiberglass, he's still producing some information to create his brand to make it more accessible for racers to look up his products and see what he has. Traileralarms.com. I have a trailer alarm now. I'm happy to say that. I really pity the fool that tries to steal it because let me tell you, it is loud, it is obnoxious. The lights flash and, things happen and axles get locked and that bad boy is not going anywhere. So if you would like peace of mind, be able to sleep at your hotel at night when you're at an event and not wake up with PTSD like I do, knowing that friends have had their trucks and trailers stolen from their hotel parking lots. I spring out of bed in the morning and I run to the window, and sometimes I'll do it in the middle of the night, make sure the truck and trailer's still there. Now I can sleep a little better. They're not going to get away easily if they get away at all. So with this device, they've been at it for more than 20 years. Trailer Alarms .com is top-notch stuff. And what we got, I was truly impressed, as was Alan and our friend Larry Ritter. Larry's kind of our technical guy. He was pretty impressed with the package, so traileralarms.com is your go-to for that. And our newest one is AKRA, and yes, it was a coinky dinky that this came on board with our interview with WKA. But these guys do kind of work hand in hand when it comes to the road race side of things. They make sure that nobody's schedule gets stepped on. They work collectively together, especially with rule structures. And we're happy to announce that AKRA has come on for several of our episodes as a sponsor. And this is a privately owned, but a members governed type organization. The members do have a lot of say when they talk to Van about how things are done and what classes they'd like to see. But AKRA, American Road Race Association, they will have their schedule out here very soon. Just like WKA, Kevin said that he had some details he had to tie up when I spoke to Van about his schedule for 2025. He said some of the clubs are still tying up a few loose ends, but they shall have something together here very soon. So we welcome AKRA into our podcast. And folks, that's it for tonight. We're going to come back in 2 weeks. I don't have a guest. If you guys have got any ideas or somebody that you think that we really need to showcase, I'm happy to do so. In the meantime, support the sponsors that support our sport, not just this podcast, but coast to coast. And I will talk to you 2 weeks. Ciao.